Our next guest is Luc Meurant, who is Swift's Chief Marketing Officer. Luc was appointed to the role in October 2017.
It's been a busy year since then as Swift has launched new products and is working on even more. He's here to talk us through the key developments. Luc, welcome to Sibos TV.
Thank you.
Now, Luc, we're talking about the changes and challenges in the financial industry. What, in your view, are the key changes at the moment?
It really is busy times, as you said, in the financial industry. We see a lot of things happening. There are five I'd like to mention. The first one is that we clearly see evolving customer needs. If you take payments as an example, customers increasingly expect payments which are fast, transparent, and increasingly free too. So clearly the demand is kind of evolving. The second one is that from a technology perspective, we see so many new things, DLT, cloud, machine learning, artificial intelligence, APIs, etc., etc. All of these have really a breakthrough kind of potential, so can be highly disruptive for industry. And that results in a totally different competitive landscape. We see the emergence of many new players, some relatively small fintechs that go after niche profitable markets, some I would call incumbents, which are being disrupted themselves in their market and start to get into our market, our community's market. And lastly, we start to see very big fintech, which as such are not so interested in financial transactions, but just wants to get their business frictionless in terms of transactions. The fourth one, in terms of key trends, which is important, is cyber. Cyber is there to stay. The cyber attacks are getting increasingly sophisticated, so it calls for a real change to address them successfully. And lastly, but importantly, regulation and geopolitics, of course, very important. I'm going to give just one example on regulation. Open banking. It really has the potential to dramatically shift the value proposition of our community, and I would argue to totally disrupt the value chain from a financial sector perspective.
Now, we also know that GPI has been enthusiastically embraced by the banking community, primarily because of its speed, traceability, and transparency costs. But what are you doing to develop GPI so that it can actually tackle the pain points, if you like, in cross-border transactions, because that is key?
So GPI has been a fantastic success. So that's our global payment innovation initiative. So far, we have more than 1 million payments every day already on GPI for more than $1 billion every single day. Most importantly, already 50% of those payments are credited to the end customer in less than 30 minutes. It really is impressive in terms of speed already. But clearly, we want to be bolder there in two dimensions. We want to go broader first in terms of adoption. So we have taken as an objective to get GPI fully adopted by the Swift community by end 2020. And actually, already next year, and we'll announce that this week at Sibos, we'll introduce a basic, simple version of what we call the tracker that will allow all the banks, all the Swift banks, to track their payments on Swift. So that's for the go broader. In terms of the go deeper, we also want to provide additional services. By that, I mean let our banks provide additional services through GPI. And a good example of that is what we call pre-validation. So GPI is a great initiative in the sense that it provides transparency. Why is your payment? How many fees have been deducted? Has it been credited? But it would be even better if we could provide the transparency at the time of the payment initiation. And that is shifting from transparency to predictability. That is one of the examples of the new services we are working on.
Luc, as you say, there's a growing appetite for real-time cross-border payments. How is Swift responding to this demand?
So we clearly see the demand for cross-border real-time. We believe that our GPI initiative could actually be the enabler for that by hooking through the GPI banks those domestic real-time systems. Now, this is not a dream. It actually is happening. It is happening in Asia. It is happening in Australia. We are announcing today that basically we have successfully tested with banks in China, Singapore, and Thailand, together with banks in Australia, a real cross-border, a real-time payment service between those three countries and Australia. So it is successful and happening now.
If payments are going to get faster, then what about compliance and fraud detection? Because presumably they're going to have to happen in real time as well. So how can the industry address that?
It's a real challenge, you're right. So the faster means also that the pressure on efficiency will be more important. I would argue that inefficiencies are going to become much more visible, but also in the case of fraud detection, much more costly. So we see banks reacting in two dimensions. The first dimension is that they really try and optimize what they can do on their own. So they try and adopt new technologies, for instance, machine learning, if I take sanction screening as an example, to optimize their efficiency on their own. The second thing that we see happening, which is quite relevant for Sibos, of course, is the dialogue happening between the banks to create new ways of looking at the issue. This is typically discussions around utilities. You may have heard about the Know Your Customer utility, which has been quite a significant success already. I would expect now that the next wave of discussions will be on sanctions. You may know that today a typical payment involves 3 to 4 banks and is being screened 7 to 8 times. There must be a better way to do that and speed up the payment itself.
Further to that, what new services will Swift offer to help banks make compliance and fraud detection checks at speed?
So for us, financial crime compliance is a very important area. We have been investing massively as a company to develop services for our community. So now we have more than 10 services live across Know Your Customer, AML, and sanction screening. Of course, we don't stop there. We have an ambitious plan. And this week at Sibos, we are launching a brand new service in terms of fraud detection. We call it the Payment Control Service. It is a real-time fraud detection service, which offers a unique value proposition in the sense that there is no installation required whatsoever, no footprint from our users, against basic rules, simple rules and parameters that the user can choose. And very importantly, we have designed it in such a way that it is totally independent from the infrastructures of the banks themselves. We run it on the SWIFT network independently from their infrastructures. Therefore, it is truly a secondary protection layer, a safety net, if you want, on top of the bank's own fraud detection services, being launched this week at Sibos.
And your team, your marketing team, in fact, also delivers Sibos. So what are the sessions that you personally are most looking forward to this week in Sydney?
That's a tricky question. We have more than 250 looking this week at
choice.
Yeah, exactly. A fantastic lineup of speakers coming from everywhere. So really looking forward to that. I would say the big issue debates would be my choice. We have 4. 2 on payments, as we discussed, a lot of changes in payments. There is 1 on cyber, very important, and the last one on Asia and innovation in Asia. There is so much innovation in Asia, so really look forward to those 4 for sure.
As are we. Luc Meurant, thank you so much for joining us on Sibos TV.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.